In the United States, an estimated 9 million people have been part of a sorority or fraternity. That's about 3% of the population. But here's where it gets strange. 76% of US Congress members belong to these same organizations. How does such a small group hold so much power? What are they hiding behind closed doors, and what is the true purpose of these organizations? Well, on the surface, it looks like community. But behind the veil, something ancient is still pulling the strings. Something dark to whom millions have sworn loyalty to, blind to the eternal repercussions that their vows carry. Hello and welcome back to the Almost False podcast, where I interview regular people with incredible stories. Today's interview is with a former member of Delta Sigma Theta, the biggest African-American sorority in the world. We talked about everything the Greek sororities and fraternities don't want you to know, including their recruitment mentality, their gruesome pledging process, and the secret rituals and oaths that are required from all members. It's extremely disturbing, yet it's something that flies in the face of hundreds of thousands of college students every single year. My guest is Lala Jenkins, and she's here to sound the alarm. So here's a complete story of how and why she entered and ultimately renounced the Greek life.
Yeah, so when I joined the STEP team, comes to find out the advisor of the STEP team was actually a part of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. So that is actually it's a large African American sorority. It's the second largest. The first one is Delta Sigma Theta. So when I got onto the STEP team, the advisor, she for abbreviation is AKA. She was an AKA. And they were doing all things AKA. So they were mimicking what the AKAs did in the sorority. So that was my exposure to anything sorority. So my family wasn't Greek. I didn't have family friends that were Greek. So I didn't know anything about sororities and fraternities. It wasn't until I got onto the STEP team and I saw the advisor. She would always have, her jacket on with AKA on it, and the STEP team was doing the poses. They were doing the steps that were mimicking the AKAs. So that was my open door for me getting into sororities and fraternities.
So you mentioned your family wasn't Greek, and I don't want to skip over that because for people like me, I think that are not really familiar with any of this world, this is like a Greek sorority specifically. That's a kind of sorority, is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. It's
And
Greek. Yes.
and that's what the letters, because alpha is a letter A in the Greek alphabet, and so that's kind of how they're set up. But when you said that they started mimicking the sororities in the STEP team, what do you mean? Can you give us examples?
Yes. So for AKA, some of their moves, their poses that they do, so they'll do like the mirror, they'll hold up the mirror because they're known as pretty girls. And so they hold up the mirror. And then some of their poses that they would do is something that they call the Ivies. Well, they'll kind of put their arms straight out and it'll kind of, I'm trying to give you a visual. It'll kind of, it's some of their poses that how they just kind of pose in the sorority is, if that's making sense, I'm trying to break it down, but it's kind of like the stuff that they would do in the organization. So if you see them taking pictures, you'll see them doing certain poses or certain hand signs. But the interesting thing is, and I want to clarify, she never was involved in the step team by teaching us these moves. It was just that the fact that she was there is when you think about the spiritual side, there is, there's a spiritual side to it. There's spirits that are behind these organizations. So those spirits in those organizations, just her presence there, it was like we wanted to be a part of that. So she wasn't teaching us the moves or anything like that. We just kind of assimilated into what the sorority does.
Okay. And for the viewer, if you've never heard about anything like this, sororities being spiritual, we're going to get into it. Be patient, but we'll get there eventually. So when it comes to the sorority, you graduated college. Did you join the sorority that the manager was in? What happened?
So that was the goal. The goal was when I graduated high school, I wanted to go into college and become an AKA because that's what I was doing in high school. But I actually went to the University of Houston. And when I got to that school, I realized that the AKAs on their campus were not the AKAs that I had, envisioned or that kind of that we were. So I went to a yard, when I got to U of H, I went to a yard show And pretty much what a yard show is, it's a show where the different organizations, they pretty much do steps, they do dances. So it's pretty much, just showing off the organizations. So when it came to the AKAs to do their performance, I remember I was in a crowd. I was kind of like, is this just the AKAs at this school? I just wasn't really, I couldn't see myself being a part of that chapter. But the interesting thing was after them was the Deltas. So Delta Sigma Theta is actually the largest African American sorority. And they actually went, the Deltas on that at that chapter, they went on after the AKAs. And so their performance, they were who I envisioned the AKAs to be. They were super pretty, they were very confident, they were very loud, very proud. Their steps were very, just dramatic. And you could tell that they were commanding the stage. They just had this type of presence where you were like, whoa, who is that? And so that's pretty much that's how my reaction was. I was like, okay, AKAs, no, who is this? And so that's when I actually shifted from wanting to be an AKA to wanting to be a Delta. So I switched organizations that I was interested in.
Okay. So again, maybe I don't know if Americans are aware of this. I'm not from the US, so to me this is like all foreign. So I'm going to ask questions to try to clarify some of these things. You talked about the performances. Was it, because that's the way that I understand it. Was it like some kind of show where all the sororities are there and do this step performance to try to impress the new, like the freshman girls, to recruit them into their organization? Is that what it was?
Yeah, pretty much. But the goal is, we don't say it's to recruit. The goal is really just to let everybody, the freshmen, all the people that are here, let them know who runs the yard. So runs the yard meaning like what organization is pretty much at the top of the hierarchy when it comes to all the orgs. So every performance is, we're the best organization. This is why we have the highest GPA. We have the most leaders. We're the best dancers. We won all these step shows. So it's basically just like a bragging show. Each org comes up and they're just like, we're the best. Next org, we're the best. Third, it's all, we're the best. But it's just, in their different type of organizational way. They have, every organization has their own type of style, has their own type of culture, has their own type of, just type of, I guess, vibe, as you would say. So they'll stick in the organization, but everybody's just pretty much saying the same thing. Y'all are horrible, we're the best. End of the show.
And so you were impressed with Delta, and I forget the other words that were there, but anyway, Delta.
Delta. I was in place of Delta, yes.
And so you wanted to join. How's the process of joining?
So the interesting thing is, I actually didn't know the process. It was a girl that I went to high school with. She actually went to the same college, and she was a little bit older than me and a few of my friends that were trying to pledge also. So when we first got to school, she pretty much sat us down in our dorm room, and she basically kind of put us on game of how to join the organizations, because we're fresh. We don't know what to do. I don't have any Greeks in my family. So usually if you have, anybody in your family that's pledged, or any family friends, they'll kind of tell you how the process goes. But we didn't have that. I didn't have that. So she sat us down and she was like, number one, you got to be discreet. And she was like, don't go around telling everybody that you want to be a part of these organizations. And they were like, if you want to be AKA, because it was one of my friends, she wanted to be AKA, we wanted to be Deltas. She was like, you want to be AKA, just start going to their events. Don't go to their tables. So they'll have different events where they're kind of like a freshman, kind of like an orientation. And so they'll set up the different organizations. And she was like, don't go to their tables. Because if you go to their tables, that's letting people around you know that you want to be in an organization. So everything has to be very secretive. And so that's why it's called a secret society. If they find out that you're talking, that you're telling people, then you're going to be considered jail, which means that you can possibly, tell their information, and they're not going to want to bring you into their membership.
Because they're looking for people that are not going to snitch. So if you start talking to everyone, they kind of see that as a red flag.
They see that as a red flag. They see it as we can't trust you. They also see it as when we start to do pledging, then you're going to tell because you don't know discretion.
Okay.
And then when it comes to the rituals, you cannot, like any of the rituals, you cannot, that's secretive information to the organization. But if you don't know how to keep that secret, then they're not going to be interested in you because you don't understand we're a secret society. Like everybody's not supposed to know what we do.
Okay. Well, let's expose those secrets today because I don't like secrets, and I don't think I think that things that are done in the dark should be brought into the light.
That's the
So,
word.
what is the initiation process you talked about? Pledging. I don't really know how it works, but just in chronological order of the things that they had you do, can you talk about it?
Yes. So, first things first is going to the events. So, the first event will be they'll go to church together on Sunday. On Monday, they may have an event about the mind where you talk about mental health. On Tuesday, they'll have an event, maybe it'll be community service. So everybody will meet up on campus and we'll go and collect some trash together, whatever it is, but it's considered their event for their prospects. So they're pretty much putting on these events so that those that want to be interested can start coming and showing their interest.
Okay.
And so it's pretty much just like it's just like a breeding ground to just kind of interview prospects and really test to see if you have what it takes to be a part of the organization. So what I started to do was I started to go to the events. I started to go to the events. And one of the things that the girl from high school told me is that you have to start speaking to them. You got to start letting them know that you're interested at the events, not outside the events, because that means everybody gonna see you. But in the events, as you're there, so maybe it's a mental health event and there's a speaker and then event is over, then I had to go around and say, hi Stacy, hi Tasha, my name is Lala. I'm a freshman and I'm interested in organization. And so as I'm speaking to them, their response will be, so why you want to be in my organization? They're looking at me. I'm a tell it from my testimony. They were looking at me like, so you think you got what it takes to be a Delta? And I'm like, I believe so. My GPA is a 3.2. And they're like, so you think that's high enough? Well, such and such, she got a 3.6 and you only got a 3.2. So why you think you gonna make it in? And then I'm like, um, well, I understand that she got a 3.6. I only got a 3.2, but I know that, I have a heart for the organization. I know that I am heavily involved in other organizations. And so I know that I can bring that experience into Delta. So you just have to really sell yourself. And then the questions, they keep asking you a variety of questions. And so they'll ask a question like, so what's her middle name? Like, and this would be like their sorority sister. What's my sorority sister's middle name? And you like, middle name? I don't even know her last name. So I'm just like, I don't know. And they'd be like, well, don't you think you should go figure it out? Don't you think you should go ask? And I'm like, okay, well, I'll go ask. And so it's kind of like this whole like intimidation. And it's just, I don't know. I think now when I joined the organization and me being in their shoes, I believe it was just one of those things where it's like, let me see how bad you want it. Because it's a lot of people that when they start going through that, so what's my name? What's my last name? What's this? Like after that event, they gone.
It's a weeding out process.
It's a weeding out. It's a weed. How bad do you want this? If I tell you to bring me pizza by 9 a.m., will you do it? And if you don't want it bad enough.
Okay. So did they end up accepting you into their organization?
Yes, they did. I ended up making line. Yup, I made line. And what ended up happening was I remember when I got that phone call, I remember I cried so hard because I really, really wanted this thing. Because I had been going to events. I've been dealing with that whole like why you want to be a part, like all of that for like 2 years.
Oh,
2 years, yes. It was very stressful because every time you saw them, I had to be like, "Hey," like discreetly say, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, hey, Tasha. Hey, Tasha." Tasha. Like I had to be on it every time. So if I'm at a party, just hanging out with my friends, and one of them walk in, I'm like, oh, I gotta go speak. I gotta go. Hold on, I gotta go speak. Hey, Tasha. Like I had to do that because if you're in the same area and they see that you see them and you don't speak to them, that's called disrespectful. Because you're supposed to be like, you're supposed to pretty much put them on a pedestal. You're supposed to really be, like really doing whatever you can to make sure that you about to make line. So 2 years into me pre-pledging, me, having to go buy, they'll call you randomly, and whatever they tell you to do, you got to drop it and do it. So you could be sleep and they'll call, what are you sleep? No, I'm not sleep. I'm not sleep. Well, I need you to bring me something to eat in 1 hour. Okay, what's the address? Figure it out. And they'll hang up. You're like, how am I gonna figure out what the address is? And so I would just call different other people that I knew were interested and be like, do you know what's going on tonight? Do you know, is there a meeting tonight? Is there a Delta event tonight? And they're like, oh yeah, they're meeting here, and this is the address. And you're like, okay. So then you'll bring the pizza and you're like, and they're like, oh, you figured out where we at? And I'm like, yes, here you go. Have a good day. And so 2 years after that, I finally made line. And I remember I cried when I got that phone call. And so the phone call was, this is such and such. Meet me at this address at this time. And they hung up. And I remember now listening to that, you're listening, you like, that ain't nothing. But for me, I'm like, I made it. So I called my mama. I started crying on the phone with her. Oh, I was crying so hard. And so they told me to meet at this address at this time. And I remember it was me and this other girl. So we met at the address, and the girl from high school, she put me on game. She was like, listen, you about to start pledging. That's the phone call. Like, don't think you about to go up in there and it's about to be, you about to be hanging out, you about to be having fun. No, like you're about to be online. So I remember like when I showed up with my food, it was me and this other girl. They pulled us into this room, and it was just like chaos. A ton of deltas just out of nowhere just started asking us all of these questions, telling us to do this. Oh, so you think you're going to be in my organization? Oh, so you think you got what it takes? And then we're like, oh, yes, 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 yes. And they're like, well, get in a squat position. So we get in a squat position, and then they're like, get on your knees. We get on our knees. And so it's just like, they're just left and right, just telling us to do things back to back. It's very chaotic. It's very chaotic. And so they're taking us in different rooms. And what they're doing is at two people are arriving. So the entire line is coming, but they're coming in twos. So every time somebody comes, they take them in a room and just started charging them up, telling them to do stuff, tell them to just do all kind of crazy stuff. So eventually we all end up in this one room and we're sitting down. They turn the lights on and we're able to see everybody that made line. So it was 19 of us. So we're all sitting down, and I'm looking around and not really recognizing a lot of the girls. So I was confused. I was like, such and such was doing this, such and such was doing this, but she's not in the room. And that's one of the crazy parts of trying to pledge. Is like you can get, hazed, you can buy all this stuff, you can be running these errands, and when it come down to who they choose, your name cannot be called. So you did all of that for nothing. It's a lot of girls, a lot of boys that have did pre-pledging for nothing. They never got into the organization because they didn't get chose. So I got chose, which I was like, hold on. So it was 19 of us in this room, and they pretty much basically, for what I remember, is they started to kind of explain the pledging process. Basically, we have to start living together. So it's 19 girls. We have to live in this one room. There was this one room that we had to live in, and it was a one bathroom. And at the time, it actually was our first living place was in this motel, and there were prostitutes, there were drug dealers. It was in this very, very bad part of town in Houston, because the school is already the school is in a bad town in Houston anyway, but they have security all the way around it. But we were in this motel, and it was just like drug dealers, like I said, prostitutes. It was a very, very bad hotel or motel that we were in, but that's what they were telling us to stay while we were doing the pledging process.
Wait a second. I want to make sure to understand this. How many people did you say? 19 in one room?
Yep, 19 in one. It was one room motel.
19, what, 20, 18 to 20-year-olds, college
Mm-hmm.
students living
Yep.
in one motel room.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Right. It is. Yep. That was the first one. We ended up having a different ones that we moved to, but they all ended up at one point in time. It was a 2-bedroom. We moved to a 2-bedroom, but then we went back to a 1-bedroom hotel. It was always just that's the process. That wasn't something that just started with us. That's how the lines before that happened. They were all big lines in one room hotels for 2 months, 8 weeks.
Do you even have enough room to sleep on the floor? Like nine. I mean, I'm trying to picture a motel room in my head, and I'm having a hard time to understand how you can even fit 19 people laying down on the floor.
You find a way. I remember when we were in the 2-bedroom, I slept under the dining room table. But there's people you sleep on, you just find a spot and you line it up. A few people on the bed and then people just on the ground.
So you're all crammed together essentially. Like you're sleeping right next to two other girls.
Mm-hmm, right. Yeah. And that's intentional. It's to create a bond. So we're all supposed to be bonded together. We're all supposed to be this one line. So we're all, forced to be one.
How do the hotels not even like kick you out? Because I feel like that would be a pretty standard procedure for a hotel. Like most hotels, you have to say how many people are going to stay there. 19 is not an option on their website. Or so like where the hotels, did the hotels know that like the sororities have a relationship with the motel in question? Because I mean, at some point they'll figure it out.
No, we weren't staying in, like, I think you're thinking like maybe like a nice hotel or these were just hole in the walls. So they don't care. As long
Okay.
as you're paying your, like I said, there's drug dealers, prostitutes. There's illegal stuff that's going on in there. So they're not like, come out because you're doing drugs. They know what's happening.
Yeah. Okay.
So 19 girls in one room is the least of their worries. As long as we ain't, I guess whatever. But as long as we're just minding our business, they were not tracking like that.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah,
um,
you're thinking of like a Hilton or something. No, we were in like a Motel 6 somewhere, hole in a wall, bugs everywhere. It was horrible. And that's intentional, like I said, for it to be one. And also because you're not anything. Like as you're pledging, you're like the bottom of the pit. You're not a delta yet because they treat you as like you're just nothing. Like don't, because while we're pledging, we can't even look them in the eye. We couldn't turn our back to them. We would have to say, excuse my back, please excuse my back, excuse my back. Like we're like slaves, not living like slaves, but we're like, there's no regard to, oh, maybe they should have some space to lay down. They don't care. As long as you're in one room, they don't care.
okay. So that's the first part. You did talk about rituals or something like that, like some sort of initiation. What's the next step of the process?
So the that's the first part. So the next part of the process is actually the actual pledging process. So us just being in the room, that's the beginning, us getting our living situation together. So after that starts something called set. So set is where we actually meet up with the big sisters, which is the deltas, and we start going through physical and we start going through mental pledging. So we'll meet at 10 o'clock. I think it's like 4 cars. So we're all crammed into 4 cars. We have to bring food and we also have to wear the same outfit, but under something called cover ups. So a cover up would be just like a sweatshirt or some sweatpants or some other type of pants, because if we're running around with the same uniform on, like people are going to be like that's suspicious, because this is a very secretive process. So we're supposed to look just like college girls that are just in a car, just all going somewhere. We don't got the same, you can't see we got the same uniform on. We're just looking like inconspicuous. What's the word? Inconspicuous.
So something close to that.
Yeah, we're just supposed to just be looking normal, right? And so we have our set clothes on under something called cover-ups. And we pull up and we sit in the car and we let them know, we're like, "Hey, we're here." And they're like, "Okay, we'll let y'all know when it's time to come up." So we sit in the car and we could be sitting in the car for hours. We're just sitting there, just waiting, waiting, waiting. And finally they're like, "Okay, y'all can start coming up." So we'll come up one by one. They're like, first car come up, second car come up, third car come up, fourth car come up. So we come up, and as soon as we get in there, we have to take our set clothes off. And the moment we get in there, it's basically like how I explained the first meetup, but this time they can get physical. So when we first met, it was just like, why are you here? You think you want to be a Delta? Do this, do that. But then now it's that, but it's added with you're getting beat. So when you walk in, we're taking the clothes off and we are trying to get into a line. So there's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we received our number. So I'm 19. I'm at the end of the line. So we all have to line up in our numbers and we have to hold our head up to the sky. We have to search. We have to search for Minerva, which is the goddess behind Delta. So as soon as we take our set clothes off, we line up, we search for Minerva, and they're just going in. I'm trying to think of different things that they would say. So it would be kind of like, "So you think you're gonna be a 10? You think you're gonna be a 19? Tell me why you think you're gonna be a 19." And then I'm like, "Oh, because I think I could be a 10 because I think I can hold it down. You think you can hold it down? You think you can hold it down?" And then they'll like just be like talking to you, pushing you around, and it's like they're trying to break your line. So as we're in line, we're looking up and we're doing this kind of line together, and they'll hit your hands, trying to break your arms down, and they'll try to see if they'll try to run through their line, and you have to try to like hold this, and then you just kind of have to kind of keep your eyes, your head up, searching. They'll ask you information. You have to spit information, and so information could be the founders, like what are the founders of the sorority, and so you have to say Big Sister Osceola McCartney Adams, Big Sister da da da, and so you're just spitting information, and then so finally once we kind of all kind of get in our line, they'll all sit down and we have to do something called greetings. And so greeting would be is you'll greet each sorority sister by whatever their pledge name is. For instance, there was a Usher song at that time. It was, I don't know if you heard this, the 7 o'clock on the dot. I'm in my drop top, cruising the streets. So we would remix that, but sing it to one of the sorority sisters. It's 7 o'clock on the dot. With her drop top, cruising the streets. She's big sister, da da da. So we'll do songs like that, and we're just greeting the big sisters one by one.
And what's the purpose of doing all of that?
Who knows? I don't know. I guess it's just to honestly, even when I cross and be a Delta, I don't know what the purpose of greetings are. I guess it's just to acknowledge each person that's there. That's it. Just kind of esteem each person, because in the greeting, you're just kind of bragging on the person. She was number 9 on her line. She was the rock on her line. Her GPA is the highest. So you're pretty much just like praising. That's what it is, Holy Spirit. You're praising each sorority member. You got to go make sure you hit everyone in the room. And so with me being at the end of the line, I was number 19. I was the tail. I was the one that had to initiate the greetings. So I had to make sure I knew each person in the room, because I would tell, my line sisters, greet big sister with my hair, greet big sister, bout it, bout it. So it's basically I'm just calling off the praises to each sorority sister.
Okay. So I'm trying to make sense of all of this because on the outside, it seems like a bunch of crazy things that they have you do, but there definitely is a method to the madness, I believe. And so the beginning part, it clearly seems like they're testing the obedience to see like who's going to obey us, who's not going to snitch, all of that. And then they even bump it up a level at uh, the time that you talked about where you were 2 and they were telling you to do these things and these dances and all of that, right? It's a continuous process of submission. There seems to be an aspect of trauma bonding as well with the other girls that you're with, whether it's in the room or whether it's you talked about physical hazing or mental hazing, whatever. There seems to be an aspect of that. It's still a little bit blurry in my head because all of this is new to me, but these are the things that come up uh, off the top of my head. So um, we talked about this part of the I don't think you can call it a ritual, but the greeting and whatever. You did mention Minerva. You have to look for Minerva. What do you mean by that?
So at that time, we don't understand what it means, but this is a type of pose, it's a type of stance that you have to be in. So when you're in line and you look, you have your head, it's like you put your head all the way back and you're searching. You're searching for Minerva. That's just what they would say. You're searching for Minerva, and you make sure you search. Make sure you search. Don't put your head down. Make sure you're always looking up, searching for Minerva. Now, when it comes to these different aspects, nobody's explaining why. Nobody's explaining what this means. This is just kind of protocol. You're searching for Minerva. Minerva, there's something else where you're reaching to Minerva. So reaching will be you'll be on your knees, you'll have your hands all the way up and you'll lean back. And it's kind of like you're working your abs. So you'll kind of lean back and that's called reaching for Minerva.
Okay. So it's the same principle as yoga poses. And if some of you have been here or you know a little about a little bit about yoga, like the actual yoga, not the weird Western trend, it's from Hinduism and the poses. And if you ask a Hindu, they'll tell you the poses in yoga are made to worship these Hindu gods. And so it seems to be a something similar to that with this Minerva goddess, which is a goddess, a Greek goddess, a pagan goddess. And there's a lot of pagan overlap, I think. And I feel like we'll get more into some of these things. But yeah, take us a little bit further into the process and what other kinds of weird pagan things did you do essentially?
Yeah, so and that's a very great revelation. It is identical to yoga because we were that was actually we're giving praise, we're sacrificing ourselves unto Minerva as we're doing those poses unto her because it says it right there in the name. You're reaching for her, or you're searching for her. Something else that we would do is when it comes to there's something called, I just remembered, passing the egg. So this is gonna get kind of yucky, but this is what was done. I'm just being transparent. So it's called pass the egg. So what ends up happening? So we're in this line, and they will come over one person's mouth and crack an egg. So it would usually either start from me or the first person in line. So they'll crack an egg in my mouth, and what I have to do is I have to pass the egg from my mouth to the next person's mouth. She has to pass the egg from her mouth to the next person's mouth. And so we have to pass the egg until it gets to the very end and the yolk is still intact. So the moment that somebody passes it, it falls on the ground. The moment somebody passes it and the yolk cracks, we have to start over. Very gross. And the person at the end, which was if it started with the one and got to me, I have to swallow it. So now I have an egg that I have to swallow with all 18 of my line sisters' mouth on it. Germs, whatever it is in their mouth, is on this same egg that I have to swallow.
That is disgusting. That is one of the most disgusting things I've probably heard. Okay, so there's a lot of disturbing things that happen. Um, let's skip forward a little bit. I don't know how much forward because I really honestly don't know anything about this. But
You want to go to the
there's
rituals?
yeah, you talked about rituals, And I do wonder. So we have the first hint, because in the beginning you talked about, there's the spiritual aspect. So the Minerva thing, although at the time probably none of you know who Minerva is, or if you know, probably not a whole lot. So they don't explain what these things are. But what are some of the spiritual rituals, whether you understood that they were spirituals or not? Like, what are some of these things that are happening later in the process?
So, later in the process, so I also want to highlight this another part of the pledging, but then there, we get into the rituals. But one more thing that we did while that we were pledging was we got paddled. Have you ever heard of that before?
I think so. I can
So
imagine it in my head, if I got that
it's
correctly.
pretty self-explanatory, right? So you get into like a squat position and the big sisters would hit you on your butt with a large wooden paddle. And you would just take, for me, I had to take 19 licks on my butt. Yeah. And some people's butt would start bleeding. And you would just have to take them licks. And this is just a part of the process. And this is just something that they're saying that you have to do. For me, they were like, if you want to be in 19, you want to be a tail, you got to take these 19 licks. So I had to get beat on my butt 19 times. And I'm a grown woman. I'm not a child, but I'm getting a whooping with a wooden paddle like I'm a child. And so we had to do that. We had to get beat with belt. I got, beat with, we were standing up in line, each taking belt licks as if we were, like I said, like a child. We got slapped in our face on both sides. They'll just go pop, 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 pop down the line, other side, pop, 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 just down the line, just slapping for any. It's always maybe some type of punishment, or sometimes it's not even punishment. It's just, all right, time to get your licks. And this is just a part of the process. It's so demonic. But then you go to the above ground process. So the thing about it is pledging is illegal. So this underground process that I'm talking about, where we're searching for Minerva, reaching, we're taking licks, all of that, that is completely separate from the national process. So the Delta Sigma Theta headquarters, they don't even know, which I do know because some of them also pledged as well, but they don't know that this is going on.
Okay.
They only know about the official, initiation process that we're supposed to do, and we're interested and we're taking the classes. So all of that is the underground process. That's secretive. But in addition to that, then we start doing the official process, which is the national process that the organization does know about. That's when we have to start going to classes. So it's about, I want to say about maybe seven to nine every day. We're meeting up in this classroom on campus, and it's located in this private area. It's supposed to be private, so it's located at the back of the campus. And we go to these classes, and the beginning part is just learning information about the organization. So it seems pretty standard. It's like, oh, we're just gonna learn about when Delta was founded, or the founders, or why they were founded. So we're getting, just foundational information. And then it kind of shifts into these ritual days, which is called jewel days. And so there's 9 jewels in Delta that they call like 9 cardinal jewels. Okay. And so they're actually a mirror of the 9 fruits of the spirit. So there's something, so we start doing the jewel days. And when we start doing the jewel days, that's when we start doing rituals, which I like I said, I grew up in church. I didn't grow up in Christ. I don't know what we doing. I just know I want to be a Delta. So whatever you tell me to do, I'ma do. So we're like walking on sand. We're like becoming one with the earth. There's like an altar set up with candles lit, and there's just all of this just demonic activity that's happening in these jewel days. And I have no idea what's happening. All I'm doing is just, this is what I want to do. And so I want to be a Delta. So I'm going to say, repeat all of this information. And it gets to the end of like the jewel days and the initiation. So it's kind of like you're building up each jewel day. You're doing, different rituals, different demonic rituals. And then it gets to the final ritual, which is the initiation ritual, which is when we say vows. And so one of the vows, it says, the president, she stands before us. Okay. So we get to the process where we're about to finally get initiated. This is the final ritual that we're doing, because we've been doing rituals. This is the final one. And the president is in front of us and she says, you are about to take upon yourselves vows and obligations from which you can never be freed. And she says, they will follow you to the final judgment. I charge you that you approach with serious minds as you proceed. And so then she says, Delta Sigma Theta is a glorious international sisterhood. If there is any soror present or not present towards which you cannot have a feeling of kinship and devotion, to whom you cannot pledge true loyalty and sisterly attitudes, I charge you here and now to withdraw. And the ritual says, candidates say, I do not wish to withdraw. So we basically just vowed ourselves and just agreed that we understand that the vows to this organization, we can never be freed, and it's going to stay with us to final judgment. And we're like, I do.
Okay. Did you have an idea of what that meant, the final judgment, at the time? Obviously, I think now you know, but
I don't even remember saying any of this. I don't even remember hearing any of this. The thing is, it's strategically placed at the end of the process because we are desperate. We are at the very end. We have been pledging for 8 weeks. We have been getting beat. We have been humiliated. We have been doing these jewel days above ground with all of these rituals. So it's really like we're getting pulled in, pulled in, pulled in. So when it gets to the last day, I don't remember anything. I'm not listening because I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. Come on, because I'm ready to cross. Yes, yes, yeah. I'm ready to wear my Delta jacket. Yes, yes, yes. My family coming in for probate. Yes, yes. So I'm not processing what this lady is saying before me. And it wasn't until I came out, then the Lord, he was kind of reminding me, and I'm like, oh wow, like I completely forgot all about that. Like the time where she's saying this, we're in all white, attire. We're on our knees on this pillow, and we're in front of this Delta altar. And of course, as you were asking at that time, I didn't know it was an altar. I'm just thinking it's just a table, but it has strategic candles. It has the red candle unto Minerva. So I'm just thinking like, this is just what we have to do. This is just a part of the process. You know, you think about even me getting beat, getting wood licks, passing the egg. Like, what mentally sane person would be like, oh, that's good. Let's do this. Like, I just want to be a part of the organization. So I'm just like, if this is what it takes, then yeah, okay. I know that I will never be freed and they're going to follow me to final judgment. Okay. So I didn't know.
so they essentially fooled all of you into pledging yourselves to Minerva for your whole lives and
Yeah.
never explained what that meant. They just kind of tricked you into doing it. And they're doing it to however many, I don't know how many people that happens to in the world.
There's 300,000 women. I think 350,000 women that are a part of Delta Sigma Theta. So they have all agreed that this will follow them to final judgment.
And that's just one sorority. So
Yes.
there's a few questions. I hope that I don't forget them. Hopefully we can get back to the one that I was thinking about. But when it comes to sororities, have you talked to people in other sororities or fraternities? And have they, I know that these things are supposed to be secrets and maybe they don't talk about it, but have they kind of mirrored the experience that you had there? Or is that just a Greek sorority thing?
Yes. So I know for a fact that I did a series where I actually went through the different sororities. I actually like looked into their rituals, and the wording is not verbatim, but it's kind of like it's like kind of they manipulate the different types of ways to say this is forever. Like, you're agreeing to be in this forever. This is a lifelong commitment. You're going to always be a part of this sisterhood, or always be a part of this brotherhood, and you understand. And so one of the lines that is consistent that I've seen, it says, you agree with your own free will and accord that you are joining this organization. And then we have to say, I do, or they have to say yes, or whatever. They have to accept this covenant that is being established in these rituals. And it's across the board. So like Tau Kappa Epsilon, I was looking at theirs, and I also was looking at Sigma Alpha Epsilon, because they have the most members. They're the largest fraternity. And when I was looking through their rituals, it mirrored exactly what our rituals said too. So they are more of, because it has like Troy Aikman, Nick Lachey is a part of them, President William McKinley. So the ones I was looking at was more just for African American, but when I looked more on like the Caucasian side, it was the exact same. And it actually, I was looking at it this morning, it actually brought me to tears, because I saw the same language across the board.
So this is hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people every year pledging themselves to Greek gods and goddesses without any understanding of what it is and what it means.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because the interesting thing is Sigma Alpha Epsilon, what I said was the largest, they actually have Minerva. They're considered sons of Minerva, loyal sons of Minerva is what their ritual says.
It's incredible. And the fact that no one talks about this is insane to me. So I'm happy that you're coming out and you're actually shedding some light on some of these things. The question I had earlier, what you talked about above ground things, which is the ritual that you talked about and the ones that are public. And you referred you referred to the other things like the hazing and stuff as underground because that's illegal. Do you know if the hazing part is something? I mean, the specific things that you do are obviously probably different from sorority to sorority or whatever. But is that a common process, or is that something that they kind of approve without like pretending, oh, we don't know what's happening, but they kind of do? Like, do you know how that works?
Yeah, so there's different types of ways to pledge. So there are some people that just do have the above ground process. They don't have the pledging. But when there are, sororities that do have chapters that do have the pledging, it is very similar things. It's going to be humiliation. You're going to get physically beat. You're going to get mentally. I didn't even talk about the mental part of where they just talk down to you and just belittle you, cuss you. Some people even cuss you out. For us, it wasn't heavy, profanity towards us, but some people, they call you out, outside of your name. They talk about your hair, all of this. So that's pretty common in the pledging processes across the board. It's heavily, like I said, humiliation, physical and mental. And the reason why I say that is very common, because you'll see even people that die pledging these organizations, not just for Delta. There's different fraternities and sororities where people die pledging, and it'll kind of put out a report of what they were doing. Like a lot of, I want to say the Caucasian fraternities, a lot of them it's been a lot of alcohol intoxication. So they use a lot of alcohol in their pledging processes, where they make the pledges drink a lot of alcohol. I know I was watching a video, and I saw a video of a pledge. They actually made him drink a cup with goldfish, live goldfish in the cup. And he drank it. It showed while they were recording him, he was pledging that he drank the live goldfish. And there also was another fraternity, while they were pledging, they made them eat whole liver. So they couldn't chew it, they couldn't chop it up. They just had to eat the whole liver. And one guy, he died because he choked on the liver. And because of the secretive aspect of pledging, the other fraternity brothers didn't tell the ER what was happening with him, the paramedics. And they said that if they would have told them, they could have did the proper procedure to get that out of his throat, but they didn't tell him anything, because it's this very secretive discretion. Like, don't say anything. We don't know what happened. He just stopped breathing. Like, you know what happened. Like, tell the people what happened. But we're conditioned, like, no, like, I don't know what happened. I don't know this person. He just all of a sudden stopped breathing and he died. I saw another report of in a fraternity, they were pledging on a football field and they were making pledges jump up in the air and fall to the ground without having to break their fall. So they're jumping up in the air, slamming their body to the ground, breaking their arm, bruising themselves, their head, concussions, all of this is a part of the pledging process. And then, like I said, all of the alcohol, they make them drink crazy amounts of alcohol, get beat with all kind of things, brooms. Some people get beat with canes, brooms, baseball bats. There was a friend, he was pledging another fraternity at my school, was getting beat with baseball bats.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting. And it's crazy that when people get to that point, they don't leave. I imagine that some probably do, but a lot of them don't. And there needs to be a conditioning that happens, because I feel like even you, if you had been thrown into that right away, probably would have at least put a hold on things. But because it's a slow process, I imagine that it makes people stay more. I don't know. Yeah, this is disturbing. I don't I don't even know what to say. So it's across Greek sororities, Greek fraternities, and we talked about the spiritual aspect, which probably most of these people don't even understand. It's very rare to know people that know about paganism, that know about what these things mean, Greek gods, the spirituality. So most of these people are probably doing it just unknowingly.
Out of ignorance.
Yeah. So after pledging yourself and making that covenant with the spirit of Minerva, just briefly, like, did your day-to-day life change in college? I don't even know how long it took. I don't like you probably, because it took 2 years to get there. So I don't even know how old you were when you actually were officially part of the sorority. But the day-to-day life, what does that look like?
Yes, I was a junior when I crossed. So I was, pre-pledging freshman, sophomore year. So I finally crossed when I was a junior. And when I tell you, my life went like 180, it completely changed. And so one of the reasons why I was really wanting to be Greek is because there's some type of like elitism that Greeks have on campus. You're like at the top of the totem pole, I guess. But you're like the popular kids on campus. So it was like when I crossed, it was like I was like a mini celebrity on campus. And I had, just like this notoriety. People would know me, the Delta lie, and I would get all of this attention from guys. My party life just skyrocketed up. It just went crazy. I didn't use I went to parties beforehand, but not like this. It was crazy partying. And the only thing that I didn't partake in was alcohol, and that didn't start till after college. But I know that the environment was heavy alcohol, heavy drinking, heavy partying, heavy, being promiscuous and being this very mean girl on campus because, I don't got beat for 8 weeks. So you're not about to just walk by me like I'm just some regular person and people even treat you as if you're not regular, right? The way that you, hey, like, they're just go out of their way just to speak because now I'm in a position where I'm the Delta now. You the prospect. So did you walk by me? You didn't say, okay, I know you saw me. And so it's just like, just this mean girl, just this feeling myself and just all of that. It just really was antichrist. Antichrist spirits just having a time. Pride, elitism, like I said. And then it also was when you try to join these organizations, they really push about the sisterhood. And I didn't have any sisters. So I really was looking forward to the sisterhood. And so there was sisterhood, but there was like division, there was discord, there was bickering, there was so much back and forth between my line, back and forth between other lines, back and forth in the organizations, back and forth between other sororities, other fraternities. How they were saying, we're the best, you're not. Then the next organization, we're the best, you're not. It's like this whole like, we are the best, nobody else is. So that mindset went into friendships. If you're AKA, I'm a Delta, well, we don't get along because you're not a Delta. And we don't get along because you're not an AKA. So it's like this whole, just this back and forth that actually is not of Jesus at all. So my life just took a it took a turn, and it took a turn fast. As soon as I probated, my life was just like, shoo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does make sense when you think about the fact that you just pledge yourself to a demonic spirit. you know, like looking at it with that lens, it makes sense that life changes. Without that understanding, you probably would try to rationalize this away, but that's exactly what it is. So it's an evil, like Minerva's an evil spirit. So anyway, let's move forward with some of these things, because you probably can talk about this forever. But I'm curious. You grew up a Christian. Your mom was a Christian, so it's kind of a twofold question. Was your mom aware of any of these things, and the parts that she was aware of, what did she think about this? And the second part is, what happened to your Christianity relationship with Jesus or whatever that you had at a younger age before you joined?
So my mom, so because like I said, nobody in my family was Greek, she didn't really have a understanding of the pledge process. I do know that she talked to one of our close cousins, and she told her that it really is just like boot camp in the military. She was like, she's just gonna do, similar to that. So my mom, she knew I was pledging, but she did not know everything that I was going through. She would call me, in the morning time, but like, I'm just making sure you all right. And I'm like, yeah, mom, I'm all right. She's like, all right, I'll talk to you later. So she'll call and check on me, but I'm not telling her, mom, I just got beat with wood. Mom, I just got beat with a belt. Mom, I just got made drink, drink all this crazy stuff. Mom, they just spit in my face. Mom, like, she doesn't know. Like, I'm not sharing all of that with her. So that's the first part. She did not know. And the second part is I did not have a true relationship with Jesus. I was still going to church though. That's how I was raised. I was still going, even while I was pledging, we going to church. Even when I crossed and I'm heavily into parties and I'm having sex with men as a Delta because, my elitism, men are swarming to me and I'm entertaining them, and I'm still going to church on Sundays. I'm singing in the choir. After just coming from sleeping with a guy last night, I'm up here, hallelujah, because that's just how I have been conditioned as my relationship is just church activities. So I don't feel any conviction. I don't think anything's wrong. Nothing. I think I'm doing right. I think I'm doing good because, especially in the African American culture, if you are in a secret society, you doing good in life. You don't made it. You at the top. You at the top in the organization, or in the culture, because that's what they push, is for people to be in these organizations because they are considered elitist. So if you made it in, oh, you are successful in life.
So the other thing that I'm curious about is afterwards. So it's pretty clear that that was your whole life, and that's what you cared about. But that's when you're in college. And it sort of, I mean, it makes sense in the way that you're in college, you're with the college sorority and all of that. What happened after you left college and all these things kind of went away? I know it's supposed to be like a lifelong thing, at least I heard, but how was the transition of leaving college for you?
So for me, it was a shift when I graduated, and I was heavily involved in the organization, all of this. And when I graduated, I wasn't able to find a job in Houston. So I ended up having to move to Dallas. So when I moved to Dallas, it was kind of like a piece of me that was attached to the organization, like detached. And so I wasn't as super Delta as I was when I moved to Dallas, but I still tried to go to the meetings because they're different grad chapters across the US. So in Dallas, there's different type of grad chapters per different, counties. So I was going to different grad chapters, still trying to see if I, wanted to be involved in the organization. But I realized that I just didn't have the same passion that I had in college. So I started to, pull back on going to the chapter meetings, but I still had those friendships. So I was still close to my former line sisters. I was still close to, the ones that had crossed before me, my sorority sisters, and I still had friends. My circle was heavily, Greeks. So men in different fraternities, women in different sororities, that was pretty much my circle was Greek life. But I wasn't, involved when I graduated from college.
Okay. So earlier we had talked about how you had no idea of the spiritual aspects of the things that you were doing. How did you learn the significance of these things?
It was not until so I had pretty much like I don't want to say encounter, but because I'm conditioned to go to church, always be involved in church. When I moved back to Dallas, I started trying to find a church home because that's what I know. That's my relationship with God is church. So I started trying to find a church home, and I ended up finding. I found a church home in Dallas, and the pastor he was in a secret society. So he was in a secret society, and a lot of members in the church were Greek as well. So I felt very at home. I was like, he's Greek. I'm not, and he also was talking a lot about Black culture, and so I'm like, oh, I really like this. So I was getting ready to join his church, but I felt at that time I didn't know, but the Holy Spirit he actually like kind of withheld me from going. I was trying to walk down the aisle and join, but I just felt like a pullback, and I was kinda like, "Okay, well, maybe I'm not gonna join." So I ended up going to a different church, and it was called Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship. And when I started to go to his church, he started to preach the unfiltered word of God. And his first sermon was about sex. So I told you when I got into the organization, I was just having time with the men. So that continued after I got out. I was still having relations with men. And so I go to this church, and the first sermon I hear about is sex. And I'm like, what is going on? What are you talking about? What? So that sermon was really like it kind of like opened my eyes that I'm like, okay, I'm not living in accordance to the word. So from that moment, that is when my relationship with the Lord was established. Because I started to go to that church, he started to preach about different truths in the Bible. I didn't read my word. Like I said, my relationship was all church. I didn't take time to actually deep dive into the word. So when I started to go to that church, I started reading the word. I started maneuvering according to the word. I started praying. I started talking to the Lord. And so I truly, that moment was truly a moment of repentance. I truly turned away from the world and started walking with the Lord. And as I'm walking with the Lord, I'm still in my organization. So I gave my life in 2014, and I'm still in my organization. I'm not seeing anything wrong with being a Delta. And it wasn't until I started my YouTube channel and I was doing videos about Delta and doing videos about Greek life on a positive aspect. I'm talking about how good it is, how good it's been, not talking about the pleasure part because we're conditioned that that's secretive. But community service, sisterhood, all of this is good. So I'm talking about that on my channel. And it was a lady, she put a link in one of my comments, and she said, the Lord told me to send you this video. She said, I don't know if it has something to do with what you're talking about or not. And so when I clicked the link, it was a denouncing video. And so denouncing pretty much just means that they came out of their organization. So it was an alpha and it was a delta that had denounced. They were a husband and wife. And so I remember when I looked at the title of the video, I'm like, what she's God ain't said that. I'm like, I don't know why she sent me that video. Like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. So I remember I went to sleep and I could not rest. For whatever reason, I could not rest. It was like that phone, because I had checked the video and I put my phone down, tried to go to sleep. It was like that phone had like stood up and was like looking at me the entire night. And I'm like, ah. So I finally woke up, and at this time, this is 2021. I gave my life to the Lord in 2014. So this is quite a few years of me walking with the Lord. So I knew without a shadow of a doubt that because that was still on me when I woke up, that was the Lord. And when I woke up, I'm like, God, what? Like, why do you want me to denounce? And I was like, but such as I started naming Christians in church who were deltas. I said, but such and such is a delta, such and such is a delta. I don't understand. Like, and so all I heard God say was, it's either me or delta, me or delta, me or delta. And so I'm like, God, why does it have to be either or? Because at that moment, I didn't think that there was any opposition between God and Delta. I'm thinking both of them are fine. But God said it's either me or Delta. And I'm like, what? I'm like, God, okay, all right, all right, all right, all right. I said, God, now I'm gonna always be obedient to you. I said, even though this doesn't make sense, I don't understand. I said, but I'm always gonna say yes to you. And so that was the moment I decided to denounce, come out of the organization. And it was the moment that I said, okay, that the Lord gave me a vision. And the vision was initiation. So the vision I saw, we were in our white outfits. We were on our knees. We were on a pillow, and there was the Delta altar in front of us. And so we were pretty much bowing. And so that's what the Lord showed me. He reminded me of us bowing to that organization. That's when that covenant was established. And I came back out of the vision and I was like, God, I remember that. I rem I remember us doing that initially. Like I hadn't remembered that for years since then. So God had gave me that revelation when I decided to denounce. And that's when I started to watch videos and I started to look through the ritual and I started to get this understanding of like, wait, what? So the first video I watched was the girl that denounced Delta, and she explained that Minerva was a female god. She's a Roman goddess. And so we are pretty much pledging ourselves to another god. And when she broke that, it was just that simple. And I was like, wait, what? God, I was, what? I didn't even know. Lord, I didn't know I was devoting myself to another God. Why would I do that, Lord? Oh, I'm sorry. Like it wrecked me so bad. Cause I was like, God, I did not know. I did not know. And I knew they do say she is a Roman goddess, but I'm not putting two and two together that I'm now with that goddess. Like I'm in covenant with that goddess. And at that time I was doing it, I wasn't in relationship with the Lord anyway, so it wasn't going to affect me as it affect me now that I'm truly devoting my life to God and I'm living according to God and I'm trying to, do everything God, and I'm realizing that the whole time I've been over here and I'm thinking I'm over here with you. And so that's how I started getting a revelation. Lord, that thing wrecked me.
So what did you do after that? After learning these things, after these memories being brought back to you as some of the things you had pledged yourself to, what'd you do?
I had already agreed that morning to come out of the organization. So once I started finding out the information, that ain't doing it. That just confirmed, oh, I'm doing the right decision. So I sent my letter to the organization, letting them know that I no longer want to be a part. So I sent my denouncement letter to them. And I also called one of my best friends. She was a part of AKA and she had actually denounced a few years prior. So that she was the first person I called because I was like, she's going to understand because she denounced too. So I called her and I just kind of got her story of how God had told her to come out of AKA and how she went through her house and she removed all of the AKA, paraphernalia. I think she said they burned it, but she just kind of was explaining that the Lord had brought revelation as well. And so I started to, he actually told me to tell all of my line sisters. So I called all 18 and told them I was coming out of the organization and why. I told them that we had bowed during initiation and we're not supposed to bow to any other god but God. And I told them that Minerva was a female god and we ain't supposed to be in nothing with no other gods. And I told them, I said, the ritual contains manipulated scripture because it does. It takes love is patient, love is kind. it does not boast. And it says a soror is patient, a soror is kind, she does not boast. So it manipulates scripture. And I was letting them know that the Bible says you can't do that. You can't add to, you can't take away. And so I was just kind of listing some of the things I said. And even one of our songs that we sing all of our love, our peace and happiness. We're going to give it to Delta. And I said, that ain't supposed to go to nobody but the Lord. So I'm explaining this to each member. Some people understood, some people didn't. And I was like, hey, that's on y'all though. I just had to give the information. So I called them. I called a lot of my Greek friends, some of my Alpha friends who were a part of a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. I told them, I said, you know your rituals say Alpha Phi Alpha is the light of the world, but the Bible say that Jesus is the light of the world. So I'm just like sharing these revelations with all of my Greek friends. And majority, if not all, were like, okay. And they stayed in their orgs. So
Not only that, also, I remember you talking about final judgment thing, right? And that's what it's referring to. You know, if you hadn't called that earlier on when we were talking, it's pledging yourself until final judgment. You yoke yourself to this like evil entity until the judgment, which essentially it kind of is selling your soul to this
that's
being,
what it is.
pretty much. So it's fascinating that you learned all of these things. And like I said earlier, thank you for sharing this, because I know that you're supposed to be bound by secrecy and you're breaking whatever the oath that you made to one another. And a lot of people don't want to do that, but you're supposed to break oaths when that's the moral thing to do. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and especially when I'm renouncing, I'm no longer in agreement with those oaths, the secrecy. I'm no longer in agreement with the organization. So I'm not bound to secrecy. I'm bound to live in the light, not in the darkness anymore. But there are still a lot of people that they won't talk about it because they're still bound to that secrecy, But I know that me talking about it in the light is going to provide revelation to others that are in organizations and, prayerfully bring back some remembrance because a lot of these things we forget about. A lot of these things we overlook, like the rituals that I was reading through. I didn't remember seeing any of that, but it happened, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So earlier you talked about joining the organization and how that changed your lifestyle. And it seemed that there was some kind of spiritual aspect to it, whatever, maybe a spirit attaching to you. I'm not sure. Did you need to get deliverance after renouncing that?
Yes, I did. I actually went through deliverance. I want to say the exact same time frame that I sent my letter in. I talked to a friend and she gave me because she had renounced also, but she gave me a bunch of renunciation prayers that I just one day I just prayed this whole booklet of prayers, renouncing, repenting unto the Lord for every single thing, breaking those soul ties that I had with all of my former line sisters, because that's what essentially happens. You become one, like in the spirit too. So I was breaking, those ties that I had to my former line sisters. I was renouncing everything that I had came into agreement with by pledging, by doing those rituals above ground and underground. So I was just kind of trying to cover every area. And so I remember as I was reading and repenting and praying, I remember hearing the Holy Spirit saying, like, don't stop, keep going, keep going. My body started to get really warm. I started to really sweat profusely. And this may be a little X-rated, but I went to the bathroom and everything was just expelling. It was just coming out. And the Holy Spirit was like, keep going, keep going, keep going. Like pray to the end, pray to the end. And so I was just praying and repenting, praying, repenting, praying, and repenting. And that I just felt all of that it just came out. It came out. And that was right around the same time that I sent my letter.
So you have quite an interesting story. It's the first of its kind that I hear, which is why I wanted to reach out to you. And to close this out, I want you to give a word to people. Well, I guess to two different kinds of people, or I don't know, maybe three. People that are interested in joining sororities or fraternities. What would you say to them? Or people that have joined in the past Or even the third one would be like parents that have children that are in these things. What would you say to these people?
So that's 3 different areas. So the first area, you mentioned those that are interested in joining. So I would say to those that are interested, everything that glitters truly is not gold, because what got me was the glitter. I saw the community service, I saw the sisterhood, I saw how these organizations are esteemed in our culture. I saw how they were esteemed on campus. I saw how so many, like Angela Bassett is a Delta, Queen Latifah just became a Delta. So I saw all of these celebrities that were Delta. So I'm thinking, oh, this is a great organization because I see all of this. But then when you peel the layers and you look behind the scenes and you look at the different rituals that we have to do, underground pledging and above ground, all of those rituals, pledging your life over to these organizations. Why do you have to do all of these rituals just for sisterhood? Why do you have to do all of that just for community service? I remember I was on a podcast and I mentioned how I was over this large community service organization and we didn't have to do any rituals just to do community service. And so I would tell the person that's interested that you don't have to, like you said, sell your soul, give your soul away just for sisterhood, just for brotherhood, just for community service. If you are a Christian, you already got all of that in Jesus. We already have sisters in Christ. We already have brothers in Christ in Jesus. We already do good works for the glory of God. Everything that these organizations sell, we already have. We are already the elect of God. We're already, a separate special group unto the Lord. We don't need to sell our soul. We don't need to do all of these demonic rituals. We don't need to get beat for the underground process. We don't need to be talked to crazy just so we can have sisterhood or brotherhood or do community service. It's unnecessary. And so for the second group, I would truly say go back and read your ritual book. Go read the book, because when I read it, I was like, did I say these things? I don't remember saying this. I don't remember vowing this. I don't remember the final judgment. And that's the thing. That's the tactic of the enemy. He don't want you to remember, And so God is charging all of us to go back and read our ritual book and see what we agreed to. And as you're reading, ask yourself, would Jesus agree to these same things? Would Jesus do these same things? You ask yourself that. Even you think about your pledging process, would Jesus endure that for the organization when he's already endured that for our salvation? All of the beating, all of the profanity, all of that, whatever they went in on the Lord for our salvation. He endured all of that for the cross. So why are we now enduring all of that for another God? It's not necessary. And for the parents who have children that are in these organizations, I would tell you to pray, pray, pray. Pray for revelation that your child would truly understand what they are involved in. You look at the ritual, there's an altar present. They're sacrificing themselves unto that organization. And unless they renounce it, they're going to still be in covenant with that organization until they die. And so as a parent, you got to pray against that thing. Pray against it and get information as you're watching. Get information about the organization that your child is in. And whenever the Lord leads you to say something about the organization, you say what the Lord is leading you to say. And if they don't receive it, that's all right. At least you presented the information and you just go back into prayer, because the same thing that people were praying for me. When I denounced, people said that they had been praying for me, interceding for me. One of my best friends that was an AKA, she told me, I've been praying for you. When I came out, I started praying for you. And so this is just evidence that prayer works. The Lord moved off of those prayers, and I'm on the other side because people were interceding for me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Almost False podcast. As always, if you want more, we got more. There's an extra footage portion, which gives more context as to what Lala's childhood was like, and it helps us understand why sororities were so appealing to her. And there's also the after show where we talked about some other stories that she has about spirit marriages and spouses. If either of those sound interesting, you can head over to our website at almostfalse.net. There you'll find every single video we've ever released, along with our merch and a bunch of other cool stuff. Also, if you'd like to read the initiation rituals yourself, I left a link in the description where you can check out about 100 of them from different Greek letter societies. Thanks for sticking to the end with me. Hopefully I'll see you again. But until then, have a nice day and stay blessed.